This is the Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich.
Becca here.
This is not America's Sweetheart, Davian. And
It's Billy Starks. And
the super fly guy, Trayvon Jordan.
This is the fly side flyer, Jalen Brandon.
Hardcore Princess, Jules Malone.
Hi there, this is the Bubblegum Princess, Alexia Nicole.
This is the Brazilian Wonder Woman, Christy Jane.
This is the baddest black belt, Chennai Kai.
This is Kid Bandit.
The smash hit, Joel Bateman.
This is Robin Renegade.
Cody Hawk.
Brutal Bob Evans. And you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment, one of my favorite podcasts in the whole wide world.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 7-foot anomaly from Spain, Alex Ace, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hello, and welcome to the show. It's Wrestling with Entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today, the trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday on YouTube and Castbox, sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. I am, of course, your host, James J., and it is a great day for wrestling, because we are wrestling with the Anomaly, Alex Ace.
Hello, everyone. This is Alex Ace, the 7-foot anomaly from Spain. Happy to be here.
And happy to have you on. And can you tell us where you're going to be next event-wise?
Let's see. So next Saturday, which I believe is November 18th, am I correct? Yes. I'll be working for Next Level Pro, which is out of Sacramento, California. They're doing their annual Survivor Series style show, so I'll be part of a 10-man tag, as far as I know.
Awesome.
Yeah. So if you're in the area, be sure to check it out.
Okay. And where can we find all things Alex Ace on social media and your merchandise?
All right. So Instagram will be at alex.ace.wrestler. That's where I mostly tend to post. On Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, that would be at RealAlexAce. And then Facebook, you'll find me at Alex Ace. So yeah, that's more or less where I spend most of my social media time anyway.
Okay, now Pro Wrestling Tees merchandise?
Yes, at Pro Wrestling Tees, if you just type in Alex Ace, I've got 4 different shirts available right now. So yeah, go check them out.
Awesome. And you don't have to look for those links. All of the links to all his social media and merchandise will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox.
Perfect. Easier for everyone, right?
Exactly. We try to make it as easy as possible.
Nice, especially in today's society, right, where we want everything at the click of a button. So thank you for that.
And that's what we. If you can literally click a button, it's literally like there.
And even sometimes that's kind of difficult, right? Oh my God, I got to click this button. It's tiring.
Well, we tried for our fans to not have excuses to say, "Oh, well, I couldn't find him on X." Well, it's in the description, so there is.
There you go. So everybody, go to the description. Do it now.
Exactly. All right. Let's get into it. You work for Supreme Pro Wrestling and Total Wrestling Federation. Can you tell us about your relationship with those companies?
Well, currently, because I work independently, mostly out of Northern California, I work with pretty much all the promotions that are out here, mostly out of, say, the Bay Area of San Francisco, Sacramento as well. Sometimes I venture down to Fresno. I've been out to Arizona with Sonoran Championship Wrestling, and a couple of times out to Texas. So yeah, pretty much TWF, Total Wrestling Federation, is out of Sacramento. Next Level is out of Sacramento. SPW, they're out of Elk Grove, but that's in the Sacramento area. I've worked PCW, which is also out of the Sacramento area. East Bay Pro Wrestling, which is in Pacheco, which is closer to San Francisco. There's a lot of promotions out here. BTW, Kirk White's BTW. SCW, which is South Bay Championship Wrestling. Yeah, there's a lot of promotions out here. You lift up a rock, you'll find a promotion. I've probably worked for them.
Well, you originally started at Riot Wrestling in Spain, no?
That's correct, yes. Actually, there was, before that, I spent 3 months, my very first training was at a now defunct promotion, funnily enough also called SPW. It was called Spanish Pro Wrestling. I spent 3 months there, and then I switched to Riot Wrestling after a little bit because I went to try out their training, and at the time they had somebody giving the training sessions who had trained in Canada, in Montreal, and it just seemed a lot more professional to me. So yeah, I spent my first couple of years out of Riot Wrestling in Barcelona in Spain, yes.
I'm just curious because, you know, I've had people on that wrestled in Spain, and I was like, well,
Really?
what's the scene in Spain, wrestling-wise? And, like, they were even like, you know, I wasn't entirely sure when I got there, but, you know, but from somebody that's from Spain that
Yeah.
started their career in Spain, what were some of the differences you saw in pro wrestling when you actually ventured out into, you know, America, Canada, Mexico?
Okay, so first of all, I didn't even know living there, and I was living there at the time, right? I was born and raised in Barcelona. I didn't know there was even any kind of wrestling in Spain. I grew up watching the Monday Night Wars, so initially Nitro, and then I discovered, you know, WWF at the time,
Right.
and I didn't even know there was any wrestling in Spain. Apparently, there's a rich history of wrestling in Spain, very connected to the European scene up until about the 1980s. And then it sort of disappeared completely. I have no idea why. In fact, I discovered that in my hometown, it's a town called Sitges, it's just south of Barcelona, there's an old theater, and they used to do wrestling in there, and I didn't even realize until I went to Austria to wrestle, and they had a poster. Anyway, so there was a resurgence after a guy who was in Spain went over and trained in Japan and then in the UK, and he came back and he sort of started something up, which at the time was called the Spanish Wrestling Alliance. And that then branched off into different things, and that was, let's say, the late 2000s, 2010s. So the influence at the beginning was mostly what this person had picked up from the UK, what he picked up from Japan, but then also there was, because of this, obviously the language thing, there was a lot of influence from the Mexican lucha.
Right.
So when I started there, first of all, I mean, I'm close to 7 feet tall. They didn't have a clue what to do with me. They taught me like everybody else, which is absolutely fine, and I agree with that. You need to be able to do everything, especially with the basics and things. But then once I was at a level where I could at least start to have matches, they didn't quite know what to do with me size-wise. They had me working pretty much like everybody else, which I understand, because at the time there weren't a lot of influences from anywhere else. Most people worked locally, so that they didn't, you know, venture out and wrestle, you know, places where there were people with a lot more experience. That started changing towards the end of me being there, where they started bringing in people for seminars. There was a big promotion in Madrid, Triple W, White Wolf Wrestling, which got pretty big because the Madrid scene in terms of fans they're a lot more knowledgeable of the indie scene, at least.
Okay.
So they started gaining some steam. They had a bit more money. They brought in people like Pete Dunne and Trent Severn and stuff like that. So we took advantage and, you know, did seminars with them. We had the, you know, Angelico, who works in AEW.
Yeah.
His parents live just south of Barcelona, funnily enough. So he would come in once a month when he had the time, when he was still with Lucha Underground, and he'd come and give us training. But again, it was very lucha based. But the problem with that was the fans in Barcelona aren't necessarily wrestling fans. They might not even watch, you know, WWE or AEW or anything like that. They just go to the local wrestling, and they're very family based. So there's a lot of kids and stuff like that. So they wouldn't necessarily understand very complex matches or very lucha heavy matches and things like that. They just want someone to cheer and someone to boo, or at least that's how it was when I was there. Whereas the Madrid fans were very different. They were very, I guess the word would be smarky. So they wanted to see more indie style matches because they followed stuff that was happening in the UK.
Right.
So the scene, funnily enough, in the two main cities was very different. From what I understand nowadays, and I haven't been there for a couple of years now, 2-3 years, there are a whole bunch of other promotions popping up in other parts of the country, which is great. You know, the south of Spain now has 2 or 3 promotions. The East Coast has 2 or 3 promotions. The North has 2 or 3 promotions. And from what I understand, they're actually all starting to work together, which is something that when I was there was unheard of. all the promotions hated each other. If you work for me, you can't work for him. You know, they didn't work together, so the scene was very small and very cliquey and local. Whereas now, from the sounds of it, people are actually sharing talent, especially the smaller places that don't have enough talent. They're bringing in people from other parts of Spain. So it's from what I understand, it's growing a little bit, which is good.
Yeah,
I don't know if that
that's
answers
awesome.
your question.
It's definitely something I kind of have to keep my eye on now.
Yeah, the only thing was the pandemic in 2020 did a lot of damage to the whole of the European scene, to be honest. Because in my case, I'd just come off, my stint in DDT in Japan, and then I did a tour of Canada, and I came back to Spain, and then the pandemic hit, and I was just starting to get bookings in the rest of Europe. I did Austria, I did France I'd already done. I did the Netherlands. I was looking around. I was going to train in the UK, and then everything just shut down.
Right.
And so we weren't even able to put on shows without an audience because we couldn't have contact with each other. So for about a year almost, there was no wrestling in the whole of Europe, and that hurt a lot of the promotions, especially the Spanish ones. I mean, Riot has survived, and they're doing the same as they were before the pandemic. But I know that Triple W in Madrid, which was at the time the biggest promotion, they had issues, and they've now become they're still around, but they've become a lot smaller. They're putting shows on in their own training center, which before the pandemic, they were actually going to big halls and things like that. So it did affect business a lot.
Now, like you said, you haven't been in Spain for quite some time. You actually
Yes.
moved to America roughly 2.5 years ago.
Correct, yes.
Was that a wrestling reason?
Yes, yeah, it was the same as when I went to Japan. I felt like I wasn't going anywhere in Europe because getting booked within Europe is complicated. There's a lot of traveling involved, and it has to be, usually by flight. So it's expensive. People don't want to pay for for your flights because they don't have the money for it.
Right.
So the same way that I took myself to Japan with a teaching job, I did the same thing over here to the US. I took a teaching job as part of a teacher exchange program. And that's how I got my visa. But yeah, the main focus was the wrestling, and the teaching was how to get here, basically.
Okay. Well, like you said, you've wrestled all over the world. And one of the more interesting places you've been wrestled was for what I like to call the Danny Duggan Death Tours, the CWE
Yes.
tour that lasted 38 days.
I believe, was mine 38 or was it 32? I can't remember. I think it was around that. It was either 32, something like that. It was like a round number, yes.
It was in the 30s for sure.
Yes,
So-
yes. 30 something shows in a row. Yeah, I remember that.
What was that experience like, wrestling for 30 plus days straight? And obviously, the travel is somewhat hectic in Canada.
Well, firstly, it's probably one of the best experiences I've had ever in wrestling. I'll put that up there with my WWE tryout and with the short time I spent with AEW because of the experience. Up until then, in Europe, when I started at least, you were lucky to wrestle once a month, sometimes twice. When I went to Japan, I got to wrestle once a week at least, sometimes twice as well. This turned into an old school, like a loop that the promotions or the territories used to do, where you just worked, 30 something days straight.
Right.
But it was a good experience because, I mean, at the time there were moments where, I had to sleep on the floor somewhere or in a car somewhere, or, breaking down in the middle of British Columbia with the ring truck catching on fire and you're 4 hours from the nearest town. That kind of stuff at the time was scary, but then you have great stories to tell afterwards. I got to work with, at the time, people from Impact. In the case of Karrion Kross, Michael Elgin, I got to work with Ring of Honor guys, Vinny and TK O'Ryan. Psychosis was there.
Right.
So it was a learning experience in terms of working, and then you get to, because you have to wrestle so many shows in a row, you have to learn to work smart. I'd come off of wrestling, like I said, very sporadically. So you could go all out in each match and you're fine. You had enough time to recover. This was literally every day. You're driving 9 hours, you're setting up the ring, you're having a match, you're tearing down the ring, you're then going to find somewhere where you can eat, and then driving over to the next town or whatever. And usually some of these places were usually about 9 hours apart, because Canada, second biggest country in the world.
Yeah.
So I learned to work very smart there, and I learned a lot of ring psychology as well, because there are a lot of people who base their wrestling on that and storytelling. And that's where I really learned how to work as a big man. And again, just all the experiences, learning to work smart. I remember when the tour ended, I did a kind of an average of how many bumps I'd taken per match, and it ended up being 0.5 or something like that, because I worked a few tag matches as well. And you just, again, learn to work smart, learn psychology. The Canadian fans, especially the further west you go, like their old school face heel wrestling.
Right.
So that helped a lot. You could do a lot more character work and things like that. I got to see every single province. I mean, we started in Winnipeg, then we went out west all the way to British Columbia, then we looped back, and then we headed out into Ontario. And then what I did when the tour was over is I stayed in Montreal for training for about a month and a half more. So I did a couple more provinces while I was there as well. It's weird because your body, the first few days, your body's kind of destroyed, but then it gets used to it. It's only when the tour ends that you're completely like, I spent 2 days in bed when the tour was over, but as you're going, you just keep going and don't stop, And
that's quite a feat that you got to see all of Canada in one go.
Yeah.
Because it is
Yep.
a rather, like you said, a very large country.
It is. And the people are so nice, though. They're very welcoming and inviting. Not that Americans aren't, of course they are. But at the time, I was used to, obviously, Europeans and the Japanese that are very standoffish with foreigners. Not in a bad way. They're just, I don't know. I used to get a lot of attention on the street just because of the way I looked. I was tall. I have a red beard, and I was bald at the time as well. So people were like, "Oh my God, what is this thing that's walking down our streets who's double the size of the rest of us?" So I was used to more of that kind of thing. And then Canada was just completely different. People, like I said, very welcoming, very open, and a lot of the workers there were very willing to teach.
Well, I did have a question about psychosis, but I'll put a pin in that for a moment. Could you tell us about the ring truck catching fire?
Okay. So I could never tell you what two towns we were traveling between because we did so many that it kind of blurs together. I definitely know that we were in the middle of British Columbia. We were 4 hours out from our previous show. It must have been about 2 a.m. We're driving on this road, was forest on either side, complete, pitch black. It was a new pickup truck, but I'm not sure if it was designed to pull the trailer that was, very, very heavy with the ring inside, because we had two sets of posts, the low ones and the high ones, depending on the venues, and just everyone's bags were in there. And I was in the car with whoever the pickup belonged to. I can't remember his name now. He wasn't part of the promotion. He was helping them out. And then there were three other workers, and I remember everyone was just sleeping, and I always sat in the front because that's, I didn't have room anywhere else. And I just remember hearing the revolutions, suddenly kind of something popped and the revolutions went up to the red, the red lines.
Yeah.
And then something was making a weird noise. Smoke started coming out of the front of the car, and I just told the driver, please stop. And he goes, what's going on? The next thing we hear is an explosion, and the whole front of the car is on fire. So he stopped. I said, pull over. I woke everyone up, literally threw a couple of them out of the car, some of them without their shoes on. And we just jumped out and kind of ran, a little bit away. It didn't explode or anything like that. It just caught on fire and stayed on fire. There was no service. We were freezing cold. And I can't remember how we managed to, I think a truck kind of stopped and he managed to radio someone. And then they managed to get in touch with people who could pick us up, but they had to come from the next town. So they had to drive 4 hours to pick us up and then 4 hours back to the next town. That took a while. So we were just kind of hanging out in the snow. Then we started playing a game to see who dared to go furthest into the forest. Because our theory was there was a Sasquatch or whatever in there. And yeah, we never got past the tree line. We were just terrified and very, very cold. But, we managed to get picked up. We were taken to the next town. I don't know what happened to the ring truck, but the ring did get to the next venue. So we were lucky in that sense. But yeah, we were in the middle of nowhere, literally. You know, scary at the time.
Did you find out why the car just spontaneously combusted like that?
It was a brand new pickup truck, so I just think that it wasn't designed to pull that kind of weight for so long. I think it was just that. It must have been that.
Okay. All right.
Either that, or there's something in the air in British Columbia. You know, I don't know.
Too much smog.
Well, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
All right. Back to Psychosis.
Okay.
You wrestled him a couple times on that tour.
Yes.
Obviously, Psychosis, a big name in pro wrestling as a whole. So what was that experience like?
Psychosis was the coolest thing I'd ever met at the time, because I remember when I first showed up to the house in Winnipeg. It was Danny Duggan's house, and I see this little man, like broken down, kind of limping, you know, funny elbows, couldn't put his arms straight, fingers all twisted, little Mexican man, right? And I didn't realize at the time in the muck, because he was wearing glasses and everything, and he was loading up the ring into the trailer of the truck, and my initial thought was, okay, it's somebody who's helping out the promotion. And then somebody goes, one of the Austrian, we had an Austrian guy, Martin Payne.
Yeah.
He sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has the same voice. And I already knew him because I coincided with him at my tryout in Germany. And he goes, "Hey Alex, this Psychosis." I'm like, "What? That's Psychosis?" And he's like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "Oh God, wow, okay." So I went to shake his hand. He was the first guy loading up the ring. He was the first guy to set up the ring and everything. He was literally leading by example, and he was the headliner of the tour. He didn't have to do anything if he didn't want to,
right.
But he was the first guy to do everything. He was very welcoming. I remember, obviously, my Spanish is from Spain and his is from Mexico. Yes, we understand each other, but not perfectly, because the accents are very, very different.
Right.
So I remember we'd speak to each other, and half the time we'd be like, "Look, let's speak in English because I haven't got a clue what you're saying." But he was just such a nice guy. He was willing to teach all of us. He was willing to put all of us over as well, make us look good in the matches. We discovered that he had a phobia of cats.
Okay.
So we decided to rib him several times with that. We discovered it because we stayed at this house. Someone lent us their house. They weren't even there for it. And as soon as we walk in, obviously, the way we chose beds and things, or couches, or the floor, depended on seniority or experience. Obviously, he was the head of he was the headliner, so he always got first choice. So he goes and finds the master bedroom, opens the door, and this cat just runs out of it, and he nearly jumped and hit the ceiling. And he was just like cursing at the cat. And we're like, what's wrong? You know, what's wrong with cats? And he goes, "Oh no, I have bad experiences with cats, you know." So he made one of the female workers go into the bedroom and check under the bed, into the cupboards and everything, to make sure there wasn't a cat in there. So as soon as he was satisfied that there wasn't a cat in the room, he goes in, locks the door. So we decided to start scratching on the bottom of the door and making cat sounds. And he was just cursing at us in, you know, all kinds of really funny Spanish, until we got tired of it. At a different show, we bought a toy cat, one of these, like for babies and things, and we put it inside his case with all his like ring gear and stuff while he was having his match. And he leaves his match, he sits down, he starts opening the case and taking things out. He even grabbed the cat, put it outside the case next to him. I don't think he realized what it was. And then he goes, picks it up again, puts it in, he goes, "Ah, motherfucker, the cats." Oh, wait, am I allowed to curse?
Yes, you're allowed to curse.
And then he looks over at us and he's like, "You fuckers, I'm going to kill you," you know, whatever. He grabs a pair of scissors and cuts the head off this toy cat. And we're like, "Oh my God, it's a toy cat," you know? I mean, he took it really well, because obviously we wouldn't have done it if we didn't think that, you know, he knew it was a joke and he would be fine with it. Because
right.
he spent the entire tour trying to make us laugh inside the ring while all the fans were there. So, no, really great guy. At the end of the tour, he gave me one of his masks and signed it and everything. I like to say that it was a respect thing, but actually it's just he didn't want to pay for checking a bag when he was going back to Mexico, so he gave us all his gear and stuff. But I will always say, no, it was an honor thing. It was a respect thing because he liked us.
Well, I mean,
but really cool guy.
Honor
Yes. No, but going back to what I was saying about when I first saw him, if you saw him outside of the ring at the time, he'd come off of lots of surgeries. He could barely move. You couldn't tell. As soon as he got in the ring, you could not tell that this man had, wrestled for ECW and was broken all over the place. He just moved like he always did.
And that's incredible. And just
Yeah.
the simple fact that, he still set up the ring and put the ring back.
Yes.
That just speaks to the character of the man,
Mm-hmm. I mean, we stopped him every time, but he still always insisted and tried.
Now, there was one match in particular you had with Psychosis, where he teamed with Larry Woods, you teamed with Mark Payne, and something was said in the match.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, I'm bad at remembering matches. I don't even. I mean, I know I must have had a tag match with him at some point, but I'm really bad at remembering specific matches. So unless you give me more details, I couldn't tell you. Did he say something like Richie?
I'm not particularly sure. I had Larry on, and he said some type of obscenity was shouted in the ring, either
Really?
from you or Psychosis, and that really got the match going and the crowd into it.
Wow, I cannot remember. It could have been Richie because that was an inside joke, and it was based off of when we started the tour at the very beginning in Winnipeg. The first show was in First Nations reservation or reserve. I don't know what you call them. And this guy met us. There was no roads or anything. We went in there, and it was a paid show. And this guy met us, and he was this blue-eyed Native American, which we didn't expect. It completely threw us. And he just spoke really funny, and he just asked us, if we were with the wrestling, and then when we said yes, he called his friend Richie. And out of there, we just started calling each other Richie the whole time, and it was just an inside. I mean, it's probably not funny the way I'm saying it now, but to us, it was hilarious. We just call each other Richie all the time, and that's how he would get us to crack in the matches. He'd yell Richie at us, or "I'm coming, Richie," or "Watch out for this, Richie," or whatever. It might have been that he might have yelled. One of us might have yelled Richie, and that the crowd obviously had no clue what we were talking about. It might have been that. I can't remember.
Let's go with that.
It's probably Richie.
Tying up a little bow on the Larry Woods interview. That being said, did fantastic things in Canada. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a big arenas guy.
Yes.
And no arena is bigger in Japan than the famed Korakuen Hall. And you performed in that venue.
Yes, it was my debut for DDT. Yeah. It was. I just remember because when I went to Japan, I lived in a city called Nagoya, which is roughly 2/3 of the way between Tokyo and Osaka. It's Japan's third biggest city, but no one's really heard of it outside of Japan because there's nothing much going on in the city. It's a very big city, and it's got a castle and everything. But in terms of wrestling, yes, the companies tour and go through Nagoya, but there's nothing based out of Nagoya. There's wrestling based in Osaka. There's wrestling based in Tokyo. The only wrestling I found, and I didn't choose Nagoya, I went over with an English teaching job, and I was assigned Nagoya. And when I got there, I was like, okay, where's the wrestling? And literally there was just one bar called Sportiva, and they do curry wrestling every Wednesday. And basically, I was just wrestling there every Wednesday. They'd pay me, they'd feed me, but it was wrestling in front of 35 people every Wednesday.
Okay.
And yeah, they treated me really well, and I really enjoyed it. And the fact that I got to wrestle more regularly meant that I had to expand my moveset, which was good, because at the time I wasn't doing all that much. But they occasionally brought in people from All Japan, people from DDT, which was surprising considering, again, it was a tiny venue under a railway, pretty much. And they brought in Shigehiro Irie, who at the time was working for DDT, and he saw me. He's like, "What's this giant white guy doing here? In front of 35 people." So he managed to speak to DDT for me, and they said, "Yeah, let's bring you in. We'll bring you in on a Tokyo show." I didn't even realize, because again, at the time that I was there, Japanese is so difficult to learn that I didn't learn enough of it, so I didn't know what was going on. I had people translating for me and stuff. And then they say, yeah, you're debuting in Korakuen Hall. I'm like, what? Like, yeah. And it's TV. It was like their summer, I don't know what the name of the event is now. Big summer event, sort of their SummerSlam kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was a tag rumble. And I remember being, as soon as I got to the building, I was like, I better help these people set up the ring. Like, no, you're a guest. You're the guest. You don't do it. Okay. And I just remember there's, you walk in and there's these posters from different wrestling events, all these legends on there. And I was like, what am I even doing here? Because I think it was 2 months before that, I went to Korakuen Hall as a fan to watch an All Japan show. And I was like, oh God, I wish I could wrestle here one day. And 2 months later, there I was, But you get this, I don't know, you get this feeling when you go in, it's like an overwhelming kind of feeling of, wow, this is a legendary place. And then I remember going to the locker room area, and that was the first time when I realized that, these people get it, in the sense that they knew that in order to get themselves over, they had to get me over, right. Which is something that in Spain, I won't say to this day, because I haven't been there for 3 years. They didn't understand that. People thought that they had to look good at the expense of the other person, when that's not the case, right?
Right.
And that was the first time they're like, yeah, we'll make you look like a beast, and you won't even get eliminated. Your partner will, so you can get angry and you have something to go off. And they were proposing things to me where I was like, I felt bad. I'm like, oh my God, I'm killing all of you. And they're like, no, that's the point. You have to kill us. Do this, do that, whatever. They throw ideas at me. And so apart from the fact that of where the venue was and, the history behind it, something clicked in my head where I was like, wow, these people want me to look good so that later on they will look good, and it just, something clicked. And then I remember asking, because I was taught how to work a camera, but I remember asking, I said, okay, where's the hard cam? Where should I be working to? And they're like, no, the camera finds you. I'm like, oh, Japan, this is cool. And it was funny because because it was a tag rumble, the crowd, obviously, that Japanese crowds are very different to the rest of the world. They're very quiet in general because they're respectful. They will cheer for the fighting spirit. They'll cheer for you coming, kicking out. They'll cheer for you breaking a hold and stuff like that. But in this particular type of match, they were a lot more into it. And as soon as I came out, you started hearing people go, oh, wow, And anything I did, especially the way that the other workers sold for me, it just, the fans were just gasping the whole time. And so it was it was an amazing experience.
And I believe the show in Korakuen was called Summer Vacation.
There you go.
Yeah.
I knew it was summer something.
Yeah.
You can see how bad I am at remembering matches. I remember that one because it was so,
Right.
But then the matches on the tour, the Canadian tour, that's difficult because they all kind of blur together. It was so many in a row that it's difficult to, remember one specific match. I do remember one, though, from the tour, because it was the first time I ever worked on the fly, because we'd set up the ring and it was a triple threat with me, Norman Harass, who was from Germany, from WXW, and Jimmy Jacobs. And we had no time to set up the match. So he just goes, listen to me. We'll go out there and listen to me. And we did. And that's where my fear of working on the fly completely disappeared, because it turned out well enough considering we had no preparation and we just followed what Jimmy was telling us.
I mean, that being said, was Dancing with the Joshi wrestlers on the fly?
Yes. God, I'd forgotten about that too. Yes, that was, oh God, where was that? I think that was an event in Nagoya. It was a DDT event. And yeah, why did they do that? They called me into the ring. The poor announcer, the girl, fell over and she was next. I didn't touch her, and she's dancing next to me and she fell over. Yeah, there's videos of me doing that out there. Yeah, that was very much spontaneous. Yes.
And I mean, DDT, it's a name in pro wrestling that people know quite well.
I think it's more because of the bizarreness around a lot of the stuff they do. I didn't particularly do a lot of the weird matches. Mine were actually serious ones, except for the one match where somehow I magically switched gimmicks with the shortest guy there, so I was bumping for him like he was a big man. But other than that, I did mostly the serious matches. but yes, it's mostly known for a lot of the bizarre stuff that Kenny Omega did or Kota Ibushi. But yeah, it is very well known. I remember at the time, friends from Spain sending me videos. Oh, we found this video of Japanese wrestling, and there was two guys on bicycles just crashing into each other, and the cameraman was an alien in the middle of the ring. And they're like, "Do you know what this is?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's the promotion I work for."
Well, another. Well, one thing that you did do in your career is you had a WWE tryout, I believe in 2018 or 19.
Correct. 2018. It was November 2018. Yeah.
I mean, what was that experience like? Because I believe William Regal was actually the one that referred you.
Yes. Where are you getting your information from? You seem to know a lot. Yes, that is. Yeah. So before I went to Japan, actually, we had Flash Morgan Webster come over to Spain to give a seminar. And I remember speaking to him after the seminar. We were at a bar, and I told him, I said, what do I have to do to, get out of this? I want to, try and make it. And he just casually gave me William Regal's email. He also told me not to say that, but I think it's been long enough, and he's not there anymore where he wouldn't get in trouble. So he gave me his email, and what I did was I sent him a few matches, only asking for feedback. I never did anything else. I wasn't expecting anything else. And this was just before I went to Japan. Then I went to Japan, and he answered me, funnily enough, a couple of months later. It took him a while, but he answered a couple of months later, and he said he didn't give me any feedback. He just said, "I'm passing your information on to recruitment." And again, I never expected anything else out of it. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. He must get a million emails. He must do that all the time. 3 months into me being in Japan, I get 4 months, more or less. I get an email from someone called Paul Fair, who doesn't work at WWE anymore. And he said, if we were to do a tryout in November, would you be willing to attend? So, of course, immediately I went, yes, Again, and he said, this is not an invitation. It's just to see whether you'd be willing to attend it. I said yes, and again, never expected anything back. And then fast forward, I believe, to either the end of September of that year or beginning of October, they send me the invitation. Thing is, the tryout was in Germany, and I was still in Japan at the time, so I literally dropped everything in 3 days. I quit my job. At the time, DDT had said they had nothing new for me because they wanted me to give them more dates, but they couldn't give me a full-time contract. And without the full-time contract, I couldn't have given them more dates because I had a job.
Right.
And the job was the only thing keeping my visa in Japan. So, DDT didn't have all the contacts that they have now, so they didn't have the money either, so they couldn't have kept me. So it was one of those things where, okay, well, we're going to have to reevaluate what we do with you. We'll talk in the future. So at the time, I was like, okay, well, I have nothing else to do. So I literally just dropped everything, went back to Spain, trained for a month because it was literally a month's notice. And then the WWE organized flights for me to Germany. It was in Cologne. And this tryout was for NXT UK. Because we had Ilya Dragunov there, and a lot of the guys that later went on to become the NXT UK roster. And I remember, I was well prepared in terms of cardio because they only had the one ring. It's not like a tryout in Orlando where they have use of like 7 rings or something. We had just the one ring, which is the same ring they were using for the European tour that they were doing at the time. And so there were 42 of us, which meant a lot of squats, basically. Whenever you weren't in the ring, you were doing squats, and it was a good 8 hours a day. You stopped in the middle. They gave you this great catering. If you ate too much, you'd throw up in the afternoon, so you had to be careful with that. And I remember at the end of that, Matt Bloom, who was A-Train and Tensai Albert, he took me aside. He said, look, at the time I was skinnier. I was about 230 pounds. I'm 290 now. He said, look, I like how you move. You're very athletic. He said, you need to put on some weight, and you're very green. we can't hire you right now because we need someone who's TV ready for NXT UK. And in hindsight, now looking at it, definitely I wasn't ready. At the time, I thought I was. Now I know that I wasn't. He gave me his email address, said, look, keep sending me stuff, and we'll go from there. So that's what I did every time I could, which, again, being in Europe meant I wasn't wrestling too often. I tried to send him things, and he'd give me feedback. Then the pandemic happened, and I couldn't send him anything for a year. So I never sent him anything until I came to the US. But he hasn't answered me since. So I'm trying different ways now of seeing how I can get in there. But yeah, it was probably I put that as the greatest experience I've had in wrestling so far. Just the whole tryout experience. Got to meet some really cool people, learned a lot. Funnily enough, William Regal wasn't at that tryout. I later met him when I was working as an extra for AEW. I met him backstage there. I remember mentioning to him, and he's done so many tryouts that he didn't remember that he wasn't at that one. But it was strange to me because being that Regal is European, I thought he would have been at that. He must have been busy with something else. We had Robbie Brookside, we had Matt Bloom, and we had what was the female trainer's name? Sarah
Del Rey.
Yes. And then we had oh God, now he goes by Kaiser. God, what's his name?
Ludwig Kaiser?
Yes, Ludwig Kaiser and Da Vinci. They were both guest trainers with us because most of the guys that were at the tryout were German. They were super nice to us as well, very helpful. Robbie Brookside was a lot of fun because he would come up to you, whisper something to you in your ear, like give you some sort of advice. Okay, when you do this with your feet, do that or whatever. If you applied it, perfect. If you didn't apply it, you'd suddenly get yelled at. Which thankfully wasn't my case, but I saw plenty of people get yelled at by him. I told you this. And the coolest thing I saw him do was he wouldn't even look at what you were doing in the ring. He would stand outside of the ring and lean on the mat and look at people's feet. And I remember going up to him once and going, "Sir, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm looking at the footwork." And I said, "Wow, that's interesting." He said, "Yeah, if I don't like what I'm seeing from your feet, I don't care what you're doing with the rest of your body." So that was, a real eye opener for me.
That is very interesting because obviously, your feet's going to lead you to where you need to be.
Well, yes, and the other thing as well is they want you to be light on your feet because if you're very heavy or you have what they call happy feet, where you're constantly taking small steps and making a sound, you're taking away from the sound of the ring when you're actually bumping.
Right.
So it makes it less impactful. So they want you to be nice and light on your feet. If you watch any of the heaviest men that WWE has, they don't make a sound when they're running across from rope to rope.
Oh yeah.
It's everything else that makes a sound.
Now you mentioned you did some extra work for AEW. I believe that was in the Forum in Los Angeles.
That was yes. I did the Vegas shows minus the pay-per-view, which was Double or Nothing. That was last year. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. And I did the LA shows. One was the Forum, and the other one was in Ontario. They had me because I went to the Nightmare Factory for a week to get some training, and I met QT Marshall there, and he, I said, what do I do? How can I get you guys to hire me or to whatever? So what he said was, would I be willing to go to the Vegas shows and the LA shows? I said, yeah, if you can get me on there. So he got me on there as an extra. The issue basically with me was because of my size, I couldn't be used as an extra. Because at the time it was when Wardlow was doing his thing with the security guards.
Yeah.
And Wardlow's a jacked guy, but he's not the tallest guy. There's a lot of people that are taller than him that what AEW does is they put him in the ring with guys that are generally smaller than him to make him look bigger. And again, in terms of muscle mass and stuff, he's jacked. And he's a super nice guy. And when he was picking out the security guards, literally I was the only one he didn't pick out. And he spoke to me personally. He says, look, I can't have you in the ring with me there because, one, I have to bump you. And two, you just make me look tiny next to you. I'm so sorry, And I totally understood. He was so nice and apologetic about it. I had no problem. But yeah, I ended up not getting used the 2 weeks that I was there. But it was still a great experience because I got to meet so many people that I grew up watching, and I got to sit down with Paul White, Big Show, And he was so nice. In catering, I was really worried about bothering him. And he says, no, sit down, sit down. He wrote down my name and he asked me questions and he gave me some really good advice. Question for you. Who do you think he said was the greatest big man of all time?
Andre.
He didn't say Andre, funnily enough. I was expecting him to say either Andre or Undertaker, and he didn't. He said Kane. He said, watch Kane.
I could actually see that. I get that.
There you go. I mean, and I have, ever since he told me, I was like, oh my God, Kane was one of my favorites growing up. So I've been watching him a lot more, mostly for how he sells, how he moves, and things like that. But again, Paul White was really good about sitting down with me, talking to me for a while. I had great conversations with Jerry Lynn. I got to sit with him as he was putting together a match, or rather, it was Scorpio Sky and oh God, I can't remember who the opponent was, and he was producing the match, and he allowed me to sit next to them, and I said, "Don't worry, I won't say a word. Can I just listen?" So I was listening to how they were putting the match together and how they were putting it around. What was most interesting to me was how they put the match together around the commercial breaks. So obviously they had to have a break spot, right, but then they had picture-in-picture, so they had to keep going during picture-in-picture, but nothing too spectacular in case people miss it. And then, so it was like 3 minutes to commercial, 3 minutes commercial, then 5 minutes afterwards. And how they were setting that up, that was really interesting. I got to speak to Arn Anderson for a while, really interesting guy. He actually saw me before I saw him. And he, came up behind me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he goes, "Hey, where did you come from?" And I said, "Oh, well, really quickly, yeah, I'm from Spain, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "How can I hire you?" And I said, "I don't know. Please speak to someone." And he goes, "Well, I don't have any power here, but I would just because of the way you look." And I said, "Well, thank you." Who else did I speak to that was really interesting? Jeff Hardy. That was 2 weeks before his more recent DUI. Such a nice guy, really down to earth. I was surprised because knowing that he's been, world champion in several promotions, I thought he would be harder to speak to, and he was just the most normal guy on the planet. I felt when the news came out of his, DUI, I was actually quite upset by it because I was like, how is this really nice guy, like literally the nicest guy I spoke to the entire time, and how is he, how is this happening to him? He doesn't deserve it, I had interactions with CM Punk, super nice guy as well. He was very nice to me, regardless of what people say online. My personal experience with him, my personal experience with him was good. He came up and said hello to me the second week. He goes, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" And I said, "Wow, you remember me?" "Yeah, you're the big guy from last week, blah, blah." Didn't speak to him very long, but he was very nice to me the few words I had with him. And then the other one I spoke to for a long time was Regal. William Regal, if you ask him questions, he loves to speak, which is great because he's an encyclopedia. So I just sat there and took it all in. So even though I wasn't used, it was a very positive experience for me. I really enjoyed it. I really liked speaking to all the people that I spoke to. I'd learned a lot. I got to see what a big company's production looks like. So, really, really interesting.
All right. Now, can you tell us about saving Santa Claus from Gangrel?
Oh, Gangrel's a cool guy as well. That was December last year? That was almost a year ago. Yeah, that show was a charity show. I was contacted by, oh God, I can't remember his ring name. It's Joey Gaitan. He goes by, I think it's TMD. He's close to Gangrel. They put the show together, and I just remember being backstage and setting up the match and everything, and Gangrel was insistent on me looking strong, and he wanted to lock up with me, and he wanted to make me look good. So nothing but praise or good things to say about someone like Gangrel. And I remember, yes, saving Santa Claus was fun. It was fun. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I've done that's fun, and I like the fact that I get to do this with you because you're reminding me of stuff that I've forgotten that was so much fun, and I love reliving it as well. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I mean, we do our research here.
You very obviously do. Like, the stuff you've said, like, wow, how did you know that?
Well, it's a good thing to keep your guests on their toes.
Yes, very much so. You completely threw me. I thought I'd have to explain a whole bunch of stuff, and you're like, "Yeah, but this time that you did this," I'm like, "Wait, I did that? Oh yeah."
I'm reminding you.
Yeah, no. I mean, like I said, the thing you said about the match with Psychosis, the tag match. Honestly, I didn't even remember that I had a tag match with him. And then he's like, yeah, and you yelled something. I'm like, oh my God, I barely remember having the match. So it's weird because some workers, like, I don't know, I've read Chris Jericho's books and I recommend them, by the way. They're all very, very good. He remembers all his matches and he's had thousands. How does he remember all his matches after having thousands? And I've had in the vicinity of 400 and I can't remember, most of them. I'll remember very specific ones or very specific moments. And people like that remember every match. It's crazy.
It's kind of how, I guess it's how your brain works, honestly. Like, some people remember, like, every move in that they did in a match. Maybe they can't tell you who they had that match with, or some things like that. But it's just, it's definitely an odd thing about, how the human mind works.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I'm very much a perfectionist. So when I finish a match, I'll try and find someone that shits on it. I'll never go, I hate you come out of a match and go, oh, good job. I'm like, no, I don't need that. I want someone to tell me what I did wrong.
Right.
And I take what the feedback is, I try and apply it, and then I move on to the next one. So that's forgotten other than, the feedback that I took from it, or what can I take from this match? How can I get better? So I guess in my case, the mindset is always to look forward rather than backward. And that's probably why I forget a lot of the matches I have, unless something went really badly or something went really well, or, something happened that is memorable.
Right.
I tend to, okay, what can I take from this? Okay, how can I apply it to my next match?
And that's not a bad way to look at it, honestly.
Well, yeah, I mean, very recently, I was on a show for SPW, Supreme Pro Wrestling in Sacramento, and they had Tommy Dreamer on the card. And obviously, knowing that he was going to be on the show, my initial thought was, I need to get this guy's attention because he's the booker for Impact. I definitely got his attention. I didn't get anything for Impact, but let's say there were about 40 wrestlers on this show. Do you want to know how many people, or can you guess how many people asked him for feedback?
All 40?
0, just me.
The fuck?
Right. I was baffled. I was like, nobody on this card can say they've been higher than Tommy Dreamer. Nobody has the experience he has. Nobody can get the kind of feedback working where they work from someone at the level of Tommy Dreamer. And nobody asked him for feedback. I was completely baffled. I'm like, don't you guys want to get better? And I'm not saying they don't. I don't know. Immediately, as soon as he showed up, I let him settle in, and I went to him. He was having a match with the promoter, so I already told the promoter, I said, hey, I want to get this guy to watch my match. Are you okay with that? Yeah. I went to speak to him. Hey, sir, if you have a moment, can you please watch my match? Yeah. He made sure he watched my match. He gave me some really good feedback, and I spoke to him for a while afterwards. I said, look, I don't get enough feedback nowadays. And he goes, well, you're at that level where you're in between, so you're not going to get a lot of feedback. But he gave me some really good feedback, which then I've been trying to apply ever since. But that was recent. So, even 7-8 years in, I'm still always looking for feedback. I still want to learn. I still want to be better. So what surprised me was that people with less experience than me that were on the card weren't asking this person for feedback. It's like, what, you have this resource here. He's not here every week. He's not here every month. This is the first time he's ever been here. Why aren't you asking him for feedback? It was just bizarre.
And we could have like a whole separate episode just about, not taking advice from veterans and, all of that. But, really, that disappoints me greatly to hear that Tommy Dreamer was in the locker room and nobody asked him for advice.
I mean, it worked for me because I got to get the advice. I got his full attention, right? So despite being baffled, I wasn't upset by it because, again, I got what I needed. Right? I mean, the day before, I was on a card with Hernandez, who used to be in TNA, and Kalisto, Samurai del Sol. Same thing. Nobody asked them for feedback except for me. I was like, it's great for me, that nobody's bothering them. I'm the only one, so they're more likely to give me the attention that I need. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Again, I'm a perfectionist. I'm trying to get as far as I can, and I don't know everything. And so I need people that do know, that have been there, to tell me. It's like, I don't know. Today's wrestling, people are talking about, yes, they're saying it's a boom period. I don't know if that can be seen that way. Yes, there are more promotions that are close to the level, or if you want, at the level of WWE. But in terms of viewership, I remember watching the Monday Night Wars. That was 10, 15, 20 million people watching wrestling on a Monday night between two programs. Now, at most, you're getting almost 3 million on a Friday. I don't know if that's increased. Yes, maybe the rights fees have increased and maybe the companies are making more money, but there's fewer people watching. So I don't know if it's a boom period or not. But what I'm trying to get at is you have to look at what worked in the past,
Right.
and talk to people who worked in that boom period to find out how you can do that again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get
Like, how did this guy get over? What did he do? Okay, what can I take from that? Why isn't that working today? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely understand.
I mean, Tommy Dreamer was around at the time when there was a whole bunch of people watching wrestling, and he worked for, ECW, then he worked for WWE, and there was, millions of people watching it. He did something right,
Oh, yeah.
He must know something.
And I mean, Booker of Impact as well. So, he's
There you
still
go.
around doing, he's still doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And he got in the ring, and, he was still doing his thing. He was telling me all these stories about all his injuries and all that. And he's like, but I'm still in the ring. He says, I get the nostalgia pop because people remember me back in the day. And he also said, and some people ask how I'm still alive. And I went, well, but no, he was still going at it. He put on an entertaining match,
Oh, yeah.
Why not? And of course, he was getting the ECW chance. Mustafa Saeed was there because he works more consistently for SPW. He must live in Sacramento. So he was the part of that same match. So of course, they were getting this big ECW chant and stuff like that. The fans there are pretty cool.
All right. Now, can you tell us, is there any meaning behind your butterfly tattoo?
Funnily enough, not really. It's there. I had it done. It's a symbol of hope. I haven't made a secret of the fact that I was diagnosed with depression a few years ago, and I went through some tough times. That's also why I got a phoenix tattoo on my back more recently. It's like rebirth,
Right.
Thankfully, I've been good for the last 2.5 years. But yeah, I guess it helps me. It helps remind me of where I've been and, how far I've come. Because sometimes, especially in this business, in the position that I'm at, it can be very frustrating where you're getting so many people that have been at the highest level saying, oh, you should. I met Kurt Angle a few weeks ago, and he's like, oh my God, if Vince saw you, he'd hire you on the spot. I'm like, yeah, but Vince doesn't see me. That's the problem, right?
Right.
So you get to a point where it can be really frustrating. And sometimes you lose sight of, because of where you want to be, you're not at where you want to be, you lose sight of where you've been already.
Right.
And so for me, I guess it symbolizes that. It's, hey, you've been through all of this and you've got through it and you're still here and you've done some really cool things. Yes, you want to get to a higher level, but don't forget to enjoy where you go, the journey and where you've been so far. Because, just talking to you now, it also makes me feel better because you've brought up a whole bunch of stuff that I've done that, because I'm so focused on where I want to be, I often forget it. So I guess that was a really long explanation for that. But
No, I love it.
am I making sense?
Yes, no, you're absolutely.
Yeah, it's basically just trying not to lose sight of all the stuff that I've done just because I'm not where I want to be,
Right. Is there
yeah.
any interest in getting new ink?
Yeah, it's one of these things where once you get the first tattoo, you're already like thinking of when you want to get the next one and stuff like that. So yeah, probably. I've just got to come up with what it is I want to do next. Because like the most recent ones where I got fire on my arm and then I got the phoenix on my back. I'm already starting to think, okay, what do I want to do next? I'll never go to the point where I'm going to cover my face or anything like that. But
Right.
yeah, once you get one, you just kind of want more. It's weird. It's like a weird addiction thing. The back was more painful than I expected, though. I've got a very high tolerance to pain, and I was wincing a little bit there because when they touch your spine, it's a bit.
I gotcha.
uncomfortable, I guess. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, I'm always thinking of what to do next. The other thing is getting a tattoo in the U.S. is way more expensive than in Spain. So it's also, I mean, I got the last two off of merch money. So it's basically waiting until I have enough money again which I don't have to reinvest in merch to do something like that.
That being said, the link to his pro wrestling tees is in the description of the video below. But on YouTube,
Yay! Just one click away. So yes, help out, help out with the ink money. No, I'm kidding. Most of it goes actually back into merch or ring gear and things like that. I've worked it out. When I first started doing merch in Spain years ago, it was basically whatever money I got from each T-shirt that I sold, I then spent on whatever,
Right.
which meant that when I had to make new T-shirts, I didn't have any money for it, right? Funny enough, the same as when I was in Japan, same thing. It's only when I came to the US, and because I was here, I wrestle way more frequently than I ever have before, without counting, obviously, the Canadian tour. I got to a point where I was like, okay, if I want to really make it here, I've got to look at it as a business. And yes, I'm the product, but I'm selling all these things. I can't just sell them, keep the money, and then do whatever with it. I have to reinvest in more merch. If I run out of sizes of shirts, I've got to get more, right? Where's that money going to come from? Okay, it's going to come from the merch itself. So I started, putting it on an Excel and keeping track of what sells, what doesn't. I mean, I've made some, I want to say bad investments in merch. Like I've got these keychains and these buttons and I've barely sold any. People don't buy that stuff. But you learn, right? And you go, okay, so that doesn't work. I mean, I've made the money back from all of that because of the shirts and whatever.
Right.
And then depending on the designs and the colors, I mean, I have a white shirt, which was the first shirt I had here in the US. And obviously that's been the highest selling one, but because it's been around the longest. But then the black one of the black ones that I have is, if you count just by time, is the most sold. Then I have a blue one, and that one, funnily enough, sells a lot to children. It's kind of like a John Cena neon blue kind of color.
Yeah.
So it appeals to children, which in my case is a big part of my fan base. I do resonate very much with children. I don't know if it's just the size thing, personality, I don't know. Kids tend to like me, so it's a shirt that sells more to kids, whereas the darker color ones tend to sell more to adults. So, and then you just play around with what works, what doesn't. Sometimes things work really well, so you got to order more. Sometimes they don't work at all, so they're just sitting there. But yeah, I started looking at it as a business, so I started, using an Excel and, controlling a bit more, because otherwise it's chaos, and then you don't have money to make more merch, and then, people, I don't know, yeah. And then again, with the merch, I'm able to reinvest in new ring gear or things like that. Basically, I tend to use that to just put it back into the wrestling, because at the end of the day, if you don't invest in yourself, who's going to invest in you?
Right. Absolutely.
And yeah, at the beginning you're going to lose money, of course, but then once you start making it and reinvesting it, it turns into a system. It's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. All right.
So yeah, look at the link in the bottom of the.
Now, can you tell us about your love of Star Wars?
How did you know that one?
I mean, it's pretty obvious if you're looking for it.
Yes, I've always been a huge sci-fi fan. Mostly Star Wars. I like fantasy as well. I've been a big fan of Lord of the Rings. But I mean, I'm sitting here in my house here in Northern California, and behind me there's a whole bunch of Star Wars Lego. I've got lightsabers on the wall. I've literally got every Star Wars video game that ever existed, including some really old, obscure ones. So I don't know, because again, and this goes back to the mental health thing I was saying before. Growing up, especially in Spain, and with my height, I always felt misunderstood. Spaniards aren't short anymore, but they don't know they're not short anymore. In fact, it's one of the tallest, funny enough, countries in Europe. Obviously, the Netherlands is the tallest country in the world, I believe.
Yeah.
And Spaniards are gaining in height, but they're still not used to seeing someone my height. So I used to get a lot of attention because of it. And obviously, until I started wrestling, it was unwanted attention. Now it actually gives me an advantage and makes me different. But so growing up, I always felt misunderstood. So I always tried to find ways to kind of escape from reality, escape from the real world. And Star Wars was a really cool, parallel universe or world or whatever. And so, it was really cool, the stories behind it, the good and the evil and the Jedi and the Sith and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's a thing that I've been into as far back as I can remember, and I'm still a huge fan of. And my girlfriend's always complained that we spend too much money on Star Wars Lego and lightsabers and things. But then she was cool enough for my birthday to pay for us to go to Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland, and we got to build lightsabers and things. So yeah, it's a thing that is ongoing. What
Star Wars Legos do you have?
Right now, let's see. So I've got I've got a couple of Mandalorian ships. I've got the one from the actual Mandalorian series.
The Razor Crest.
Yes, Razor's Crest. I've got what are they called? The ones the Mandalorians have in the Clone Wars, the ones with the wings that go up and down.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what it's called, but I know. I have it.
I've got Boba Fett's ship. I've got different TIE fighters. So I've got the regular TIE fighter, TIE bomber, the Interceptor. I've got the Inquisitor ship. I've got the Jedi ship. And then Moff Gideon's ship from Mandalorian as well. The ATST Walker. I had more stuff when I was a kid in Spain, but my dad threw out all my Lego at some point, which I didn't discover until months later, and I was really mad because I played with Lego a lot when I was a kid, not just Star Wars Lego, just all Lego.
Oh yeah.
But we're running out of room because my girlfriend collects Harry Potter Lego, so that's around as well. But we're out of room. We've got no shelf room anymore, so it's either buy new shelves or don't buy any more Lego.
Well, we know what's not an option in that scenario.
Yeah.
Now,
Yep, we can't throw out the Harry Potter Lego.
I have too many Legos as well. I mean, the most prominent Star Wars ones I have both Lego Death Stars.
Oh wow! Okay, so you spent the big money.
Well, luckily they were Christmas gifts, so didn't have to spend money. But yeah, big prominent on me.
They are. That's the thing. I mean, they have like the collector's versions of some of them, and yes, I want the biggest ones, but it's money, right? It's money that then how do you justify spending that kind of money when, I don't know, you could go on a trip or whatever, or I mean, we do travel a lot. Most of the time it's for wrestling though. But I'd rather, as much as I love collecting the Lego and things, I'd rather spend the money on visiting. I mean, America has so many cool places. I've already seen 30 something states.
Wow. And
I'm trying to see as many as I can, because just everything's just so cool here. It's so big. There's so many things to see. I'd rather spend that money, while I'm here on visiting as much as I can.
Right. And, I also have the Star Destroyer, the long one.
Nice.
And
yes.
They just came out with the one from the prequels. That's the same size.
Oh, the Venator.
Yeah, and I'm like, I want that, but if I did
they just come out with that? Oh my god, I have to look for that.
Well, legitimately, I want it, but like, I'm also thinking, if I build it, where the hell am I going to put it?
Oh my god, is it? Wait, I'm looking at it right now. Is it like $600?
It's around that.
900? Wow,
No.
I don't know. Yeah, 600 to 900. I don't know. Wait, Venator class, Republic cruiser. Hear me? I'm on a wrestling thing and I'm talking about Lego. Yeah, on the Lego website, it's $650. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, now I want that. Why would you do that to me? Now I want that. Hold on, babe. We're getting another Lego. Yeah. She's like, no. Damn it! Now, why? Look what you made me do.
I'm sorry.
Now I want it. No. That's cool though. Now I discovered it. That's good. Hey, babe, Christmas is coming. It's expensive though. It's expensive.
It is. No, when you watch,
it's a cool ship though.
when you watch Star Wars, are you going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or are you going 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3?
Well, funnily enough, okay, so I would do it in the actual chronological order. So I would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are kind of there, but I'm not sure if I count them because Disney just
Nobody
But yeah, well, you'd be surprised. Oh no, the visual effects of episode 8. No, that doesn't take away that it completely killed everything. But what we're doing now, so we were watching Ahsoka when it came out recently, and there's a lot of references that are to Star Wars Rebels. And my girlfriend hadn't seen Star Wars Rebels; she'd seen Clone Wars.
Okay.
She was like, "What are all these references?" And I was having to explain it all to her, and she's like, "Well, why don't we watch everything chronologically?" I'm like, "That's a lot of stuff." She goes, "Yeah." So we watched. We were watching because even Disney Plus has it like chronologically, including the series. So we watched episode 1 and watched episode 2, and now we're going through the whole Clone Wars series, which it's taking a while. It's taking a while because we don't have a lot of time. But yeah, I would watch it chronologically for sure. Yeah, I just wish that all of what used to be the expanded universe wasn't like Legends now, because there were so many cool things. I mean, I'm glad that, Dave Filoni is bringing in a lot of the Legends characters and making them canon, and he's more or less following what those personalities were like. Like Admiral Thrawn is pretty much the way he was in the expanded universe, which is good. But then there's a lot of characters that can no longer exist because of the new movies or whatever, like Kyle Katarn. I don't know if you're familiar with Kyle Katarn. He was originally the person who stole the plans for the Death Star. And there was a whole video game, Dark Forces, about it. But because of Rogue One, this character can no longer exist. Unless they bring him in a different way, he can no longer exist. And he was a really cool character because he was the central character of the whole Jedi Knight series of video games. And there's the giant nerd in me coming out. So yeah, I don't know. It killed a lot of things like that. Or the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic. Those video games are so good. And technically, Revan is canon by his name, but not the character itself. And I believe he's one of the greatest characters ever because of his redemption arc and stuff like that. But all of that is now no longer part of Star Wars canon. So it's like, they're going to bring him back. What are they going to do? But yeah.
It kind of is, because Filoni did bring Darth Bane and the ending of the Clone Wars. So it kind of justifies that there was a Revan before that.
Yeah, I believe the episode 9 visual dictionary named one of the Sith squadrons. It was called the Revan Squadron, so his name is canon at least. And they recognize that he was a Sith Lord at some point. Now they're gonna have to expand on that, I guess. But I'm liking the High Republic stuff they're doing. I'm reading the books, and it's actually quite interesting. It's completely new, and it covers a time period that wasn't really covered in the expanded universe before. So it's something that, at least isn't killing something else for me. It's actually new and interesting.
The High Republic, is that the prequels to the prequels to the prequels?
Pretty much, yeah. It's around something like 500 years before the Battle of Yavin, I guess. But for example, in the books I'm reading, Yoda is mentioned. He's alive at the time. Obviously, much, much younger Yoda, but he's mentioned. It's about 300 years before. So it's something that wasn't explored previously, but and so they're not stepping on anything else to do it, which I find quite interesting. So yeah, they've got a whole bunch of books about that. So if you have time and you're really, really nerdy like me, you can read those.
Now you have me Googling Star Wars things I need to get.
There you go. Well, getting you back. I was getting you back for the Lego.
And I apologize to your girlfriend as well.
She's fine. She likes it too.
Speaking of books,
Yep.
Can you tell us about Bad Guys, Guns, and Redemption?
Wow, okay. You really did your research. Yes, I did write a book. So while I was in Japan, I had a lot of free time. Well, I had a lot of time in my apartment, especially when there were like hurricanes. Well, they could call them typhoons over there. So yeah, I wrote a Western based on the first time I ever came over to the West Coast. I did like this big road trip. I did LA, Vegas, and San Francisco, and I did like the national parks in between and stuff. And so I don't know, I just started writing one day. And then when I got towards the end of what I was writing, I looked up how long, like novels about Westerns, how long they are more or less. And I had more or less the word count. And I was like, well, maybe I could publish this. And I had a few friends read it at the time, and they really liked it. So I looked for other Western books, and I looked for their publishers, and I sent the book to different publishers, and one of them happened to say, hey, well, let's publish it. And so it was only available for a short amount of time. It was available on Amazon, and I think just family and friends bought it. So after about a year, the publishers were like, hey, we haven't sold very much. We're canceling your contract. So I have a couple of hard copies at my parents' house in Spain, and that's about it. And a few friends of mine have copies. But it's cool because I remember I kept a copy, and inside the cover I wrote to myself, I said, if ever you think something's impossible, just remember that you wrote a book. So yeah, it was one of those things that I just did for fun, and I ended up, publishing it in the end. I didn't make any money off it, not really, but it's something I can say I've done. Hey, I wrote a book. Did you write a book?
I have wrote a book.
Okay, well, there you go. That makes two of us then.
But maybe you could self-publish it yourself. That's an option nowadays.
That's true. Maybe if I make it in wrestling, I could revisit it. I started writing the second part of it, and then I just didn't find the time to really continue it. But yeah, why not? Maybe if I make it, it could be, like Mick Foley, #1 bestseller, and then. Is this about wrestling? No, nothing to do with it. Oh, okay. It's there.
That brings us to the colossal question. Let's say that they're making a movie about you.
Ooh.
Every movie has a soundtrack. What would be the first 3 songs on your movie soundtrack?
Ooh, that's difficult. I love the soundtrack to The Lord of the Rings.
Who doesn't?
I might use that. I don't know. It's because, for me, music is something that depends on my mood. I used to listen to a lot of indie music. Nowadays, I tend to Blink 182 just came out with a new album. So I'm listening to all of that because I guess growing up in my teens, I used to listen to a lot of the punk rock, a lot of stuff like Offspring, which I very recently went to my first ever Offspring concert here in San Francisco, which is really cool to me because, when they were at their height when I was a teenager, I don't think they ever came to Spain. So I got to see them recently. So maybe something out of that, I guess, either something from Offspring, something from Blink 182, or let's just go with Lord of the Rings, and the Rohan music. Or Concerning Hobbits, which fits with my size.
So basically, we're copy and pasting the whole Lord of the Rings soundtrack.
Yeah, why not?
And
throwing in some Blink 182 and Offspring in the middle there.
This sounds awesome.
It sounds awful. It sounds terrible.
I think Lord of the Rings could fit in some Blink 182. That would work.
Well, I mean, we could try it.
That being said, now that we got the soundtrack down, we go to casting. Who plays Alex?
That's
you
difficult.
Can't say yourself because you're obligated to make a Stanley-esque cameo.
We need to find someone who is in the 7-foot range, has a beard, and is bald. Who can you find that fits that description?
I don't necessarily think the 7-foot has to play that much of a factor because
That's true. They did that with the Lord of the Rings, like with the Hobbits and stuff. The actors weren't really that height.
Right.
Can we get Stone Cold Steve Austin to play me?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Or we got Stone Cold or an actual former wrestler who is a huge name, and they can play me, little old me.
Hell yeah, for 100%.
Exactly. Hell yeah.
Now that we have Alex down, it's time to go into the supporting cast.
Ooh, difficult.
Who would play? Who's 3 people significant to you and your story, and who would play them?
Ooh, significant people. I mean, babe, who would you have play you in a movie? She says herself. My girlfriend would play herself. Yeah, but if the main actor isn't me, who are you? No. That's difficult. Okay, my girlfriend would definitely be one of them. I just don't know who would play her. I guess she'd play herself. I would say one of my first coaches, George Morillas, his name is. Who would play him? We need a short, and he won't mind me saying this, we need a short, fat guy with a beard. That's a difficult one to cast. And then I guess I need someone to play my parents. They're important. My dad is tallish. My mom is a scary lady.
Keep in mind, they don't have to look exactly like them. Maybe
yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know. The casting choices, that's a difficult one. Like the who the characters are is not so difficult, but who plays them is difficult. I could be played by Jason Statham. There you go. Yeah, Jason Statham. What's that, babe? Oh, she says Angelina Jolie to play her.
Okay, so Jason Statham and Angelina Jolie. That works.
Okay, yep, Jason Statham, Angelina Jolie. Sir Ian McClellan to play my dad.
Oh, yeah.
And let's see. Helen Mirren. No. Maggie Thatcher. Not Maggie Thatcher. Maggie Smith. Maggie Thatcher was the prime minister of the UK. Maggie Smith. Dame Maggie Smith to play. No, Judi Dench. She's more physically like my mom. Yeah. Judi Dench to play my mother. And let's see, who can play George? Jack Black.
Oh, yeah.
Similar physique.
I love we have Jason Statham, Angelina Jolie, Ian McKellen, Maggie Smith, Jack Black.
Yes.
Like one of these things is not
it doesn't. One of them doesn't fit, right? Yeah.
I'm surprised one of them was in Susan Sarandon.
I drove her around in a movie. You knew that.
Yes.
I drove her around for the Sitges Film Festival. She was very nice. Very, very nice. Gave me a nice tip as well. Yeah, we had to drive away from paparazzi and everything. I didn't know that was a thing. And then, drive this way, that way. Let's get away from them. And then we had to stop because they were on motorcycles and we were driving this giant Mercedes thing, like a van. And the person who was handling her just said, okay, stop. He got out, he spoke to them, and they left, and that was it. But I'm pretty sure they would have known what hotel she was at. We don't have that many hotels in my hometown. Actually, we have a lot considering the size of the town, but 5-star hotels, there's like 2. So she would have been at one of the 2. But anyway, yeah, I got to drive her around. Wow, you've really done your research.
Yes. Either way, it sounds like an incredible movie, and you could pre-order the tickets now.
Yeah, just look at the link below, right?
It's in the link below.
Together with the social media and the pro wrestling tees.
On to a controversial subject. Pineapple on pizza. What's your stance?
Oh, that's a big one for me. Like I always ask people that I first meet, I'm like, pineapple pizza, yes or no? And the answer determines whether I like them or not. I always go no. I like pineapple. I like pizza, but it's... I can eat it, but no, don't put pineapple on my pizza. The texture is just wrong.
Okay.
And it's warm. It makes it warm. Warm pineapple's weird. You want pineapple to cool you down.
All right. So very anti,
what do you think?
Pineapple.
No, why? Okay, but I need to know why, because that way maybe I can understand and I can maybe join the dark side or something. So why?
I love that you associate pineapple on pizza
with the dark side. I mean, okay, so but is it because it gives it a contrast in flavor, like the sweet with the or what? Why is it? Or do you like munching on warm, weird fruit?
I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't say I'm anti, but I don't eat it, so I guess I'm on the anti side.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay then. That's okay. I need to find people who will tell me why they do like it. Because I don't know. Maybe it's a contrast in flavor. Because sometimes the sweet does go with a savory, but it's just not on pizza.
Maybe
Don't
you haven't
spoil
found
my
the
pizza.
right pineapple on pizza.
Say that again?
Maybe you haven't found the right pineapple on
Maybe,
pizza.
yeah, maybe. Maybe it's that. Yeah, maybe it's that.
Right.
True, I tend to avoid it if I see pineapple on pizza. So maybe I just haven't tried the right one. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. What's your spirit Pokemon?
Ooh. I always chose Charmander because I like fire and I like dragons. So
All right.
I guess it's going to be Charizard in this case, but yes.
We love the OGs.
Yep, definitely. I lost track. I lost count of like all the other Pokemon. I had the first. What was it? I had Pokemon Red, and then the next year, I think I played the next 2 generations, and then I just lost track. There's so many now.
Right.
The OGs.
Yeah. We love the late great Tracy Smothers on the show. Do you know the acronym for Doug? THUG.
The acronym for it?
Yes.
What's the acronym for it?
T is for terrible, H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail. Because a Doug can't spell.
Is that they used to say that?
Yeah, that's Tracy Smothers' classic.
Wow, I need to watch some more Tracy Smothers. Just looking at his Wikipedia right now. As you said it, I pulled it up. IWA Mid-South. Oh, he did TNA for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
And then he was on the independent. He died in 2020, and he was working until 2019. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, Tracy is one of the all-time legends that doesn't necessarily get their flowers. And as many people as I've talked to, none of them has had a bad word to say about the guy.
I bet he seems. I'm just reading now. I mean, the people that paid tribute to him, by the looks of it, like Jim Cornette, CM Punk, Edge, Frankie Kazarian, Taz, Jeff Jarrett, Tom Pritchard. I trained with Dr. Tom for a little bit last year. Super cool guy. Really cool. I love the way he coaches as well. He's very old school, which was cool to me. I didn't get to meet Kane because I was only there for a week, and it's his school as well. And I was like, when do I get to meet Kane? And they're like, no, he's too busy with his mayor thing. I'm like, oh, okay. But Dr. Tom was worth it for sure.
No, and obviously trying to keep the memory of the late great Tracy Smothers alive on the show. Now,
Nice, good.
On to the weirdest question you'll be asked on a wrestling interview, hopefully.
Boxers.
Huh?
Boxers. No briefs. That wasn't the question? Oh,
No,
okay. That
no,
wasn't the question.
No. Would you
Is it weirder than that?
Well, you decide for yourself. Would you ever consider wrestling a Rock? Not Dwayne Johnson, not the country, an actual physical Rock.
Well, let's see. I've wrestled the Invisible Man before, just not on a show. It was in training.
Okay.
And I know that Kenny Omega's wrestled inflatable dolls. A Rock would be a new level because how you can get the Rock over though somehow. I mean, if the money's right, I guess I'd wrestle a Rock. I don't know. I'd have if it became viral, I'm sure I'd hear about it from Jim Cornette's podcast. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, let's go with yes if the money was right.
Well, just for context, there's this wrestler named Psycho Mike that wrestled an actual Rock for over 15 minutes in a Tungsten Man match. That's an Iron Man match that lasts for 2 weeks.
What?
Yes.
Okay. Why? Did it become viral? Did it do anything for him career-wise?
It unfortunately didn't become viral. The match he had with a dog a while afterwards
I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, but unfortunately the match with The Rock, because obviously The Rock was a wrestler that was the world champion, so it didn't really
Oh, wow. I mean, in my case, I like to keep my wrestling as serious as possible. So when I worked Hood Slam a few weeks ago, and they told, because Hood Slam's out of Oakland, they have this parallel universe kind of thing going, and I didn't realize. And they're like, yeah, you're going to be an alien from outer space. And I was like, I don't know. I like to keep it serious, blah, blah. But storyline wise, yes, I was an invader, but inside the ring, it wasn't hokey. It was serious in the ring, so it wasn't so bad. I was expecting, I don't know, really hokey stuff, which I'm not very into. I get there's an audience for it, but I tend to want to keep my wrestling serious and story driven.
Right.
But so it was an interesting experience. So I don't know about the Rock thing now that I think about it. That certainly was a weird question. I think mine was weirder, though. The boxers or briefs was probably weirder.
I thought we might have another weird question you might appreciate in a little bit.
Okay.
But on a more serious note, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ooh, hopefully working for WWE.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I keep trying. So yes, I'm going to go with that. That's my final answer.
Okay. And what is a match people should go out of their way to see that best shows off what you are all about?
Ooh, okay. So I have someone I particularly enjoy working with here in Northern California because he's about 360 pounds. He's relatively tall. So I get to do a lot more stuff with him because there's not such a big size difference. So I would say Alex Ace versus Frost. And I think the most recent bout we had was TWF, Total Wrestling Federation, and it was in the Colonial Theater. That one's on YouTube. I think it's the most recent, Alex Ace versus Frost. I'm particularly proud of that one because it's the only one match we've had that we will build face versus face. So the story we told was different to what we've done before. And we started off slow on purpose. We started the match very slow. No one could knock the other one down. And then we eventually built up to a point where we both went down at the same time, and that's when the gloves came off. And then we just started escalating, and it ended with a big superplex. So put that as 360 pounds plus about 290. So almost a 700-pound superplex. It broke the boards in the ring and everything. Everything bounced. The crowd went nuts. So that's probably one of my favorite matches to date. Yeah. So yes, Alex Ace versus Frost, TWF at the Colonial Theater. I've got to say it was about 2-3 months ago, maybe.
Okay, and you said it was on YouTube, so
yes, it's definitely on YouTube.
I will search the archives of YouTube for that
It should.
match, and
I think it was around August.
All right, and I will put a link to the match in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox for anybody that hasn't seen it, wants to see it, wants to re-see it after this interview.
Yes, nice. Thank you.
And since we are nearing the conclusion of this interview, we are wrestling with the 8 questions of doom.
Oh, 8 questions of doom.
This is our speed round, our bonus round, the round where we see who.
Wait, do I have time to think? Because you said like speed questions. Sometimes I have to think. Okay. I get hit on the head a lot, I've got 4 staples in the top of my head right now.
Ooh, hell.
From last weekend, I got hit with a belt, and anyway, yeah. So I need time to think.
Then you answer however long it takes. It's okay.
Yes, changing the rules of the game.
Yes. All right.
Alrighty then.
Excluding yourself, greatest wrestler of all time.
The Undertaker.
Worst wrestler.
Ooh. That's a very difficult one. Are we talking about known named wrestlers, or could it be any wrestler?
Anybody.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with someone from Spain, probably. Worst wrestler. It has to be someone from Spain. Let me see. Quick. Think. Oliver Turner from Spain.
Okay. Your main eventing WrestleMania for the World Championship. Who is your opponent?
Right now, Roman Reigns.
If you could come out to anyone's entrance music, past or present, who would it be?
Ooh, Kane. The Kane music that had the words to it, the Figure 11 song.
Slow Chemicals.
Yes. I don't know why they stopped using it. They probably didn't want to pay the rights fees.
honestly, that's when King dipped for me a little bit.
Well, because he came, I think that's when he came back from injury. He was skinnier, but he was more athletic at the time. They did bill him at slightly shorter at the time as well, and like not so heavy. I mean, Kane, the best Kane for me was probably like the original, or when he was wearing that black suit, or the Flame Kane around the time of the WCW Alliance thing.
Right.
But yes, anyway, keep going.
Finish the sentence. Kayfabe is
dead, but you don't have to keep beating it with a stick.
I love that.
Well, because it's true. Like, yeah, everybody knows kayfabe is dead, but you don't need to tell everybody that this is not, But yes, anyway.
He would have also accepted it tastes great on toast.
What? Okay. Sure, okay. I like mine better.
Squash, vegetable or fruit?
I mean, I treat it like a vegetable. Vegetable.
It is indeed a fruit.
What?
Yes.
So like tomato? Okay.
Exactly. Tomato logic. It has seeds.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I can see that. Damn it! I'm supposed to be a teacher.
You're part of Squash Squad now, and that means a hell of a lot more.
I have squash matches. I don't know if that counts.
Let's say it does. All right.
Okay.
New Japan wrestler Taichi, his ring gear gets smaller every year, revealing more of himself to the world. My question, what is the appropriate trunks to butt cheek ratio for ring gear?
We don't want to see butt cheek. There's no need.
So full coverage.
Yes. Like Progressive Insurance. Sponsor SmackDown, by the way.
And the last question, the main event, the thing everybody wants to know. Have you ever had a conversation with a stranger in a supermarket about Darby Allin?
About Darby Allin? No. Why? Most strangers in supermarkets don't know who he is, and that's not a slight on him. It's just wrestling isn't mainstream anymore like it used to be. People have heard of John Cena, they've heard of The Rock, but even like Roman Reigns isn't someone that a lot of people have heard of, and he's on top of the business, right? So yeah, no, haven't had a conversation about Darby Allin in the grocery store. I have had conversations about wrestling because people stop me because of the way I look, and they're like, "Wait, you're someone?" I'm like, "No, I'm really not." Yeah, I've seen you somewhere. I'm like, "Well, I'm a wrestler," and then you explain wrestling to them. But yeah, so the answer to that question is no.
And that is the correct answer.
Oh, there was a wrong and a right. Okay.
I mean, either way, it's going to be right. I'm going to say correct answer.
I mean, I met him backstage AEW. He was very nice. So, yeah, but I don't know if anyone casual would be speaking about him in a grocery store.
And that's exactly how that question came about. My co-host was having an argument early on when AEW started about, AEW hasn't made any stars. And they were like, Darby Allin. And he was like, if I go into a supermarket, nobody's going to know who Darby Allin is.
I mean, I would say their biggest homegrown star is probably MJF, but it would probably be the same thing though. Does anybody casual know who he is? Oh, even though he's been now in the Iron Claw, which is the movie that's just coming out about the Von Erichs. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it started with Darby Allin. We're sticking to Darby Allin.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. No, I can see that.
And that will conclude this interview. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me.
Thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun remembering stuff that I didn't remember.
Absolutely. And once again, where can we find all things Alex Ace on social media?
All right. Check the link below, apparently. But Instagram is at alex.ace.wrestler. X, formerly known as Twitter, because everybody says that. At RealAlexAce. And then Facebook, I think if you just put Alex Ace, and then it's written in English and Japanese, because I never changed that. So yeah, Or just click the link below, Pro Wrestling Tees /Alex Ace. You'll find my shirts as well. But they're cheaper if you come and buy them in person, so come to the shows.
All right, and like the man said, there's no reason to type it into your Google machine. All of the links to all his social
Too much
media
trouble.
and merchandise are in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox, simply click the link. A new tab will appear on whatever device you are on. You have no excuse. Buy a damn shirt.
All you gotta do is click, damn it!
Of course, thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, both on YouTube and Castbox. This was sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Join us next Tuesday and Wednesday for new incredible interviews. Follow the show at Wrestling with E on X, Instagram, and Thread for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ99Drink. All right, Alex, when I say wrestling wit, you say entertainment, okay?
All right.
For our special guest, Alex Ace, Kaliko Yacht, Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling with
Entertainment!
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.